Interesting. This is day 37, part two. I just got a call from a friend who kind of lives like the way that I'm about to describe. She lives out in nature. Um, but yeah, I didn't realize, but that's kind of what I longed for. I never realized that before today. I mean, I always knew I liked nature, but yeah, when I was young, I thought I wanted what like some of my friends had, like, a mom that would be home and like bake cookies and that could have gone to like private school or something where I don't know. Uh, I would have been exposed to more, or like I wish I had parents who listened to like cool music, and um, I wish I had learned to swim when I was little and ski. I mean, just stuff like that is what I used to think about. But in this vision or whatever, what came to me was like I wished I had like we had camped outside. I mean, like lived out there, and that we all kind of as if I was a little girl, like that we all kind of like fell asleep in a pile, and that I heard my parents tell stories, and yeah, this is really weird for me, and that I like rode horses, but even that, I when I was little, I used to picture like taking horseback riding lessons, but it doesn't appeal to me at all. It's just like being outside, and and then and what it reminded me of was like the other day I was talking about this blooming pink tree that I saw in this townhouse community, and just like quickly when I was like, okay, I'm gonna make it into a persona, I just thought, oh, it's like she doesn't belong here, and but she's adding beauty, and it wasn't what I was looking for. I was hoping to like really be able to go to a forest and look for something like really wild and natural. But that day, this is what was there, and so I just focused on it and created the story. But it kept that really came up for me today. Like, wow, like if I long to be out to like live outside, like that's what my nature is like. Then how displaced I must have felt. It's like so beyond just like my personality is different from the ones in my family, or that I came in with like some old past life grief and like grief about this family that only I seem to be aware of consciously, but that my disposition is meant for like to be kind of more wild, and that like I grew up like in an apartment building, and just like everyone, I had to go to school, and just how I fucking never felt like I had enough space, and I always thought that it was like my personality, but I feel it's more than that. It's like my actual being. Like I need to be fucking running around outside, and it's weird because I actually seemed like the opposite. In a lot of ways, I was timid. Like I hated gym class, and so I always thought I wasn't very active, and like I like a kind of like like that whole like losing yourself in books and being like introverted and kind of like, but I think I got that way because I couldn't be wild, and so I couldn't be like running around outside and like underneath the stars and in a vast space, so I didn't know how else to deal with it. Like, I mean, I have no idea. This is all just, I have no idea, but I didn't know what to do about it. I'm like, okay, am I supposed to pretend that this is my childhood? That I actually grew up like in the wild? Um, and I think it was just to acknowledge how different, like that, to acknowledge the difficulty that I had, like why it was so hard for me to live. I mean, why it's been so hard for me. Like it's it's like just beyond personality, and even if it was just personality, that too, but just to like kind of like honor it, I guess. Like this whole like not fitting in, not belonging thing is not just like because you're like weak or being bratty, or like you're too sensitive to just adapt. So then I asked like, okay, what's next, and it brought me to that that day when I was 16, the first time I had sex. It's interesting. It seems like it's like rites of passage. Like, okay, when you were born, and then like what your childhood was like in general, and then like when you have sex, you know, and um, and again, I'm like picturing this experience with this guy, and like, what would have been better, like if my brother walked in and said like, "Don't do that to my sister," you know, or if I had told him off and said like, yeah, I know I'm sexy, but I deserve to have a boy who loves me, not just wants to have sex with me. I mean, I couldn't picture any perfect scenario, or like what, I'm a virgin until I meet like this really great 18-year-old boy or 25-year-old boy, or I mean, I get married. Like none of those scenarios sounded interesting to me at all. Like they don't sound better. I mean, okay, they sound better, but I didn't have some emotional, I don't have an emotional charge with it anymore where I felt like, oh, you know, if the guy had loved me, like, you know, my life would have been different. I couldn't access that, you know, even though I know that's probably true. It is true. So again, I just kind of let go and just like, and then I found myself, yeah, in the woods. I was in the woods, and like meeting a guy in the woods, and we were like companions, you know? And like, I mean, it sounds so ridiculous, but it's like he's got a bow and arrow, and we're like playing games together, and then like we're discovering each other's bodies in this very like natural way, and it's like friendly and like animals, you know? And this is so weird. So yeah, that's what I would have wanted, you know? And I guess, you know, it's weird. It's like, it's still what I want. I mean, a part of me, I woke up from this thing and was like, should I just like move out to the wilderness right now? Like, why is this coming up? It's so bizarre. And what am I supposed to do with it when I'm like, right now, I'm like in the middle of like trying to do this whole business thing. I mean, that's what I was starting my day with. Like, what's the next step, like, in communicating from this authentic place? And I guess I'm accessing it right now, but it just seems so far removed, like, from what's happening. And maybe it's just, you know, just recognizing how unnatural the way that all of us live is. Because I can't just, because I feel like the answer is not for me to just to have lived that way on my own, or for my family. Even if my whole family did that, it's like we wouldn't have been able to live in this country. We'd have, like, where can you live like that? But that is what's natural. Um, and I don't know, maybe it's not for everyone. I mean, maybe it just, right now I feel like that's how I was meant to live. And and obviously I didn't for some reason, but it's like there's, I'm meant to kind of acknowledge the difference between what would have felt good and natural to me and what actually happened. And I feel like it actually happened this way so that I could look at that gap and do something with it, explore it, or talk about it, somehow heal it, or go back to it, you know? Yeah, and because then I had this dream. So after that, I felt exhausted, and I went into this deep sleep, and it was the middle of the day, and I let myself just sleep, like not meditate, like I'm just gonna fucking sleep. And then I had this dream that I was in a car and I got in an accident, and the cop was like had all this information about me from the past and was like kind of intimidating me, like it was more of a hassle than just the accident. And then I ended up going to his house, and I thought he was gonna like help me, and then I felt bizarre in the house because people like kept trying, like were knocking the door and he wasn't answering, and so I felt like I wasn't supposed to be there. And then he finds out I'm a healer, and then he says, yeah, you should like, heal my gallbladder before you go. And in my dream, the gallbladder is like really low, like next to his pelvis, and I give him this look of surprise, and I was only surprised because he was like being so presumptuous that I would like, why would I heal him at all? But he thought I meant because it was like near like his sexual organs, and so he says, "Oh, come on, I'm an old man. Don't be crazy. Like it's not a big deal." And he drops his pants. And then someone knocks on the door, and then he like looks startled and shocked. So then I'm like, fuck this, now people like something's happening, like someone's gonna think something's happening here when nothing's happening. So I go into the bathroom, and then he follows me in the bathroom, and then he like has me touch his gallbladder, and then his dick is hard, and then he puts my hand on his dick, and then I'm like kind of freaking out. I try to leave, the door's locked, and I'm able to break free. And he's like kind of laughing. It's not violent, but it's obviously. And I remember in my dream thinking, oh, like I can't tell anyone about this, because like, not because I was ashamed, just because it's gonna be a hassle. Like I was like, oh, it's gonna be one of those like, it's turning into a big deal, but nothing's really gonna happen because I'm not gonna be believed anyway. He's just a cop. And then also like he has all this information about me. He's probably gonna like do something violent to me if I go after him. I'm sure he had this all planned and has done it before. And when I woke up, I was thinking, what a horrible conclusion, right? Like, yeah, and I didn't know what the dream was telling me because I have not had I don't think I've had experiences quite like that. But it was so specific and so vivid. It was like it was really happening. It just, the timing seemed weird, but maybe, yeah, I mean, right, at the moment I'm just feeling like maybe it's a collective thing. Like, yeah. Like, the vision of what I would have liked when I was young is what would have felt natural. And the dream is like, represents the kind of shit that actually happens. Like, that dream is easier for me to believe than the vision I had, you know. And the vision I have is pretty much just like living outside, like learning and exploring of another person through nature and being with my family under the stars. Like that's my vision. And that feels more unbelievable than, like that feels like more like a dream than having some fucking dude like have all this information about you and scare you. And then like have you touch his fucking dick and feel like you can't say anything about it. Like, yeah, I don't know what to do with this, but that's what today is about. Oh, and one of the themes for today was flexibility. And are you too flexible, or where can you be more flexible? And in my life, I really feel like I'm almost too flexible. This has to do with the tenderness thing too. Like for me, I'm realizing tenderness has been about like committing and kind of actually having an edge or a line, that being too open or too flexible, like, like the other thing, what would I have done in that cop situation? Like maybe not go into his car at all, or maybe not go into his house even if he was intimidating me, or just like run out when I felt uncomfortable. Like all of those times I could have done something different. But realistically, like in my real life, like I could totally see just kind of going along with things, like to a certain extent. Like I give people the benefit of the doubt. I'm not paranoid, and I just kind of like roll with things. And I do think that's a good way to be. I mean, I don't want to live in paranoia and have these walls of protection around me that are not really protection, but just self defense, which is actually an act of violence. So it's confusing. Yeah. What do you do when you're in a world that's like this and you want to be open?